Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. This is the monochrome primitive painting tutorial. This is my first video, so take it easy on me here. So we're starting with three primitive shapes, the ones that we did for rendering previously in the course. We have a cone, a sphere, and a cube. I've already put some paint down on the palette, some white, some blue, some orange I don't end up using, and some black. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a mid-tone color. So I'm going to take some blue, I'm going to add a little bit of white, mix it up. I'm using my square brush or edge brush, and that allows you to get nice crisp edges. I'm going right along the perimeter of the cone to start, just applying that mid-tone value, just trying to apply a base coat over the entire cone surface. See, I'm pointing out the flat edge allows me to go nice tight up to those straight edges. Just allows me to get nice clean lines. So I'm just cleaning off my brush here. I'm about to mix some more values, which I'm going to apply to the cone. So I'm looking at the light source. The light source is pointing down. It would hit that right side of the cones. That would be lighter. And then the values would fade to darker as they traveled from right to left across the cone. So I've just mixed in some white there. I'm putting a little bit of water in there too to get the paint to flow better. And I'm applying that along the leading edge, the edge which is closest to my light source. Adding water just allows it to blend a little bit, flow a little bit better, and maybe mix with that base coat that I put underneath. So now I'm mixing a little bit more blue in there just to kind of get a tone or a value that's kind of in between that dark and light. I'm just applying it to the edge. Now I'm going to darken it up a little bit and get closer to that first base coat I put down. And I'm putting it against those two edges. It needs to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to add a little bit more blue. And now I have a tone that kind of bridges the gap between that highlight and that shadow. And I'm just brushing those values in, just getting them to mix. Just adding a little bit more blue, get another darker value. I'm going to put that on that left side. So now I'm cleaning off my brush. I'm going to get it nice and dry too. And I'm just going to brush those colors into each other, and that's going to allow me to blend them smoothly. That gets rid of the line quality, the borders between those values, and just creates that gradient, that blending from a highlight to a midtone back to a shadow. So now I've taken white, this doesn't have very much water in it, and I'm putting it along that leading edge, just brightening up that highlight, just getting that front edge a little bit brighter hue or lighter hue. So again, I'm taking that brush with no paint on it, just a little bit of water, and just blending things together, just to try to transition those things as smoothly as possible. So we're moving on to the sphere now. The light's going to hit that a little bit different. If you remember from our rendering exercise when we were just using pencil shading, there's almost like a C or a U-type shape of bands of color. But first what I'm going to do is just put down that base tone, that under painting, that kind of mid-tone value, just to get the shape. Okay, so I'm thinking about how the light's going to come and hit that. It's going to create a highlight at the top right area. There's going to be kind of shadow tones there on that bottom left edge. So I've just mixed a little bit of blue into that base tone value or that underpainting value. And I'm just putting it along the dark edge or the shadow edge. Just mixing a little bit more blue in there, getting another darker value, putting it along that bottom edge, trying to create those three basic tones, the highlight, the midtone, and the shadow. Now I've cleaned off my brush, I have a damp brush again, and now I'm blending those values into each other. Again, to get rid of those kind of borders or the lines between the values, and to get it nice and smooth transitioning from the darks to the lights. Gone a little bit darker now. Still want to get more contrast. Remember, the more contrast you get, the better. The more 3D something's going to look, the more interesting it's going to look. So again, cleaning off my brush, just using a damp brush, blending those dark colors up into the lighter colors or values. Again, going a little bit darker now. Again, along that shadow edge or that back edge. So cleaning the paint off again using just that wet brush and just blending those values up. So what I'm trying to do here is I've added a little bit of white and I'm trying to add a reflected light edge. There's something called rim lighting where objects will have kind of this reflection of the light that's hitting the surface that they're sitting on. And so the actual edge will not be the darkest part. That bottom left edge would not be the darkest part of the sphere. I've gone to white and I've added a little bit of water, applying a highlight to the top right now. And clean the brush, and again, just using that damp brush and blending the values down. Just putting a little bit more of a highlight. So that's the specular highlight. That's that kind of bright white spot that you'll often see on the tops of shiny objects or kind of semi-gloss type objects. That's where the light source is coming down, hitting the object, and then reflecting into your eye. So I wanted to add a little bit more contrast, just adding a darker edge. And then just cleaning my brush off, using a damp brush and brushing those values up. Okay, so now we're going to look at the cube. Cube's probably the easiest one to paint here. I'm just deciding which of those faces is going to be the highlight face, the shadow face, and the midtone face. And I'm going to start with the midtone face here. And I'm just using that flat brush again, getting those nice straight edges. That can be challenging when you're painting to get nice crisp edges, as tight as you could get if you're using a pencil or a pencil crayon. I try to make sure that my brush strokes on each of those different faces is heading a different direction. So those were going that direction, left face that direction, top is going in this direction. That'll just help. It's very subtle, but it'll help separate those three faces. So now I'm just applying the light value to that top face. I just added some white to that midtone value to get that top value. Again, I'm using that flat edge to try to get nice, crisp edges. And now I'm going to add some blue in there, and I'm going to try to create that shadow value on the side opposite the light source. It's not quite dark enough, so I'm going to add a little bit more blue. And first, I'm just cutting in those edges. So there we go, those are the base values I've put down. So we've got those three values. Now, even though those sides are flat on that cube, there would be a little bit of gradation or a little bit of changing of the tones on some of those faces. That's just how the light is. It's not hitting directly on one of the faces, but it's kind of sweeping from the top down to the bottom. So what I've done is I've watered down some paint, and I've determined that I'm going to add a little bit of a dark area to that back edge. That's going to help with perspective too. I'm just using my finger to blend there a little bit. That's something that I'll often do just to help blend colors a little bit better, or a little bit more subtly than what the brush can do. And I'm just going to pull that back dark edge forward. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring back that light value. And again, I'm just kind of blending those together a little bit. You can see now that far back edge is a little bit darker than that front lighter edge. I'm just adding a little bit thicker white there, just to make sure I get the edges. And I'm adding a little bit of tone there on that side, mid-tone face. just because you'd have a little bit of light reaching over that edge. And then I'm doing the same with the shadow face there as well. So there we go. There's the three primitives shaded. This is called a monochrome painting because we only ended up using the one color, which was blue, and then we used the tinting the white. Thanks for watching.